Good morning. This is Velva Dawn Silver, and welcome to Wisdom Weaver Wednesday. Every Wednesday, I try and interview someone that, I feel has an important message, is willing to share their experience in life, and just have real, raw stories, just allowing you to hear how people make it through things in life. So today is February the 22nd, and we are at an O2 portal, and I'm excited to have, I'm just going to bring her on here in a minute. Okay, so she'll be joining us here. I'm going to have Terra Dawn, who is a coach, who is a woman who is very inspirational. I had her at my course a couple of weeks ago, and she is changing lives moment by moment. Good morning, Cindy. I see that you're here joining us. So we're just going to wait for her to come on here, and then we are going to begin the conversation. So in this conversation, what I want to share with everybody is, we're all living in this world, right? And we're at this place of figuring out who we are, what's important to us, and what our values are. And the thing that I really like to practice in my life is going back inside myself, taking a look at self-reflection. What exactly is it that I need to shift? Good morning, Pete. It's so nice for you to be here. I'm glad you're joining us. That is amazing. Hi, Diana. There's a lot of you that are coming on. So we're just waiting once again for Terra to come on here. It's always interesting to, let me just see if she comes on here. Okay, here we go. I'm just going to add her here. Thank you for your patience as I figure out how to add her on here. Okay, Terra. I just saw you pop up. I'm just trying to get you on here. I'm not sure. Maybe try that again. Okay, so let's just go back to what I was talking about. So inner peace is really important for us to figure out how we get there. What is that space? Okay, Terra, I just sent you a request here. And here she is. There you are.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, your feed is frozen. There you are.
Hi.
How are you?
I am well. How are you?
I am good. Can you maybe turn your volume up a little bit?
I am doing that as we speak. Is that better?
Okay. Maybe a little louder.
It's at max. Can you hear me now?
Interesting. I can hear you, but it's, you know what, I'm going to do the microphone.
Okay.
No. Okay. Yeah, it's not that loud.
Okay. Well, my headphones don't always sync, so this is where I'm at.
Okay. It'll be good. Can you guys all hear us? I see there's a few of you on here. Okay, good.
Amazing.
Okay, Pete says he can hear us both.
Great.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is Terra Dawn, and I want you just to introduce yourself, say a little bit about yourself, and share with everybody what you would like them to know about you.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Terra Dawn, and I actually, I'm a stay-at-home, work-at-home, homeschooling mom. I have 3 kids, 2 that are grown up and out of the house, and 1 that's 8 years old. So running my own business is a little bit interesting some days, and I'm really grateful that I get the opportunity to be at home and stay at home. And my work is around helping women, and I think we're diving into that a little bit later, so I'll save that. But I had the pleasure of being introduced to Velva Dawn through a friend 9 months ago, and our journey has been incredible, and I'm so excited to be here. So thank you for the invite. It's such an honor.
Oh, you are so welcome. I know I'm very grateful for Rob introducing us back in 8 months ago. Like you said, it's been a long time, so I appreciate that. So thanks, Rob. And it's been a good connection. So you have many hats, right, that you wear. And do you want to share a little bit more about every, mask every area that you are, because there's a lot that you're juggling, right? You're juggling it
Mhm.
all together.
Mhm. Yeah. So when anybody asks me what I do, I am a transformation coach. And so what that means is I help with heart transformations, healing abandonment wounds specifically, anything that has to do with working with women with food of addictions and a background of addictions and abuse, whether it was in their family home or whatever that looked like. And so that was actually my education a long time ago. So I have worked with at-risk families for years and have always been involved with serving people, either through sport with gymnastics or so I'm actually a certified personal trainer and certified nutrition coach. And so, and I also facilitate with a seminar in Calgary. And so I wear a lot of different hats, like you said, and stepping into understanding the value of my own intuition and how powerful that is in serving others, because I'm highly empathic. It's actually on my strengths finder list of all things. And so I am I want to say typical Gen Xer, has been living in my masculine energy for a number of years and learning how to step into my feminine energy. And so this is where my own personal work is. And some of those hats are, I'm a mom of a veteran, and so I support veterans and their initiatives. It was the 22 push-up challenge today. And so that goes for wounded warriors. And, so there's lots of things and lots of dynamics about who I am and what I stand for. And I was raised as a farm girl, like you. I'm a horse girl. There's just so many commonalities between us. And I am a very firm believer of we can accomplish whatever we put our mind to. And so I'm that person that kind of tackles everything and has all of the ideas. And, and if I could capitalize on all of them, I probably would try, but I know better. And when we know better, we do better.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
You're right. I know. I love that we have that farm girl background, right?
Yeah.
I always say that you can go from jumping on a horse or, grooming a 4-H steer to your high heels in a second, right?
Yes.
It's just such a gratitude to have those rural roots. So I'm glad.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So welcome to Wisdom Weaver. Thank you for being here. I'm excited. I feel like you have a lot to share. And so let's begin, right? We've kind of briefly talked about what questions are off the table and which ones are not. So the first question that I want to talk about, I know we've had some similar stories, and we're going to talk about dating. So for all of you that are out there listening and you're in that transition field, like Tara and I are, we're going to talk about that. But the first question is a big one. Okay. So the first question is, what is the most painful experiences that you've had in your life, and what tools did you use to move through that experience?
Okay. Well,
Right?
it's like, where do I start?
I know. It's a big one.
It is a big one. I'm going to say that possibly the biggest, and the biggest pain point, I think, is being a ex-spouse of an addict in recovery, as well as being a mom of an addict in recovery. There's a lot of pain that comes with that. And when I say that, like there's nothing I can do about the addiction, and there was nothing that I did to facilitate the addiction on either part of them. And they stand behind me as I talk about this. So anybody that's like, ooh, she's really going there. Yes, because I have permission to go there. And that's the best gift, is that when we have people in our lives that are really honest about who we are and what we do for a living, is that we have that support. And so I'm going to say, through their addictions, I'm going to say that my ex-spouse's addiction actually prepared me for my son's addictions. And so while it was a blessing in disguise, and I actually thanked him when I was going through the tough of it with my son, struggling with his addictions, as he was in his PTSD from being in the military. And so the tools that I pulled out was knowing who my people were, leaning in and leaning on the people that I knew had me 100%, and self-care, taking care of myself. And grasping onto the programs. So I was in Al-Anon for a number of years. I took really good care of myself and my own mental health. That was the best gift to my other two children and the people around me. And it was very isolating in a lot of experience, in a lot of ways. And it was very enveloping of understanding who was standing beside me through that, because anybody going through that can't walk through that alone, and nor should you. And so I think that's why I take such a firm stance on supporting veterans and the mission there, as well as my work with my women, is because I've been in it and I know how that feels. And so I'm first-handed experience. And I think, like, if I was to take the expansiveness of those two circumstances, that's probably the most painful. The most painful thing is feeling like a failure as a parent when your child steps into addiction, also knowing it wasn't mine to hold.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's so powerful when you can detach and understand that whatever your child or your loved one is going through, and you can step back and go, you know what, they agreed to do this on the planet at this time. You know, I need to let them have their space to move through that blueprint, however they may move through. I hear you on that. Like, that is so, it's been so valuable for myself to do that with certain areas of my life too, to bring that peace. And I think the work that you're doing is so powerful with the veterans and with, you know, PTSD, because there's so many empaths out there, and, you know, they don't understand even that they're empathic or how to move through it. So I think that's very valuable, what you've just shared with many people. So thank you for being so raw with that.
Yeah, that's what we're here for, is to show up. And, you know, it's interesting because I set my intention for this morning and it was about speaking the truth, because my voice has a purpose. And that's what I believe that we're here for, you and I both. When we speak from a space of knowing and a space of healed, it gives a lighted path for those people who don't know where to go next.
Exactly. And you know, I just said this, I had a friend sleep over last night, and we were talking about it, and I said, it's like since COVID, the world has fallen apart, and there's like all of this shrapnel around, and then there's people looking next as, what do I do? How do I fix this? Right? And then there's those of us who have been standing there holding the light, and we're ready to do the work to help everyone else. So we work together as a collective, right?
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Love that. Okay, now here's the other big one that I like to ask. What advice would you give to your 20-year-old self now?
Don't marry him. I actually had a desire to travel. I had a big desire to travel, and then I met my first husband, and I realized, looking at it from my higher self, I was responding out of woundedness. I was responding out of abandonment wounds, and I was responding out of just needing to be saved. There was so much going on in my life when I was 20. My parents were going through divorce and separation, and it wasn't pretty. And there was just, for me, it was my own self-worth. Like, there were so many things, like, literally, and do I regret the outcome? No, because I love my son to death. And he is the beautiful result of that. And I would still say, do the traveling before you get married. Live your life and get to know who you are.
I think that is so powerful, what you just said too, about, you know, live your life and be at that space, like, do the travel, do those things, because your role changes as a parent, right? So I love that advice. Okay, now let's ask, should we go into the dating world?
Sure.
Okay.
I can game on for pretty much anything, so.
Okay, so Terra actually does TikToks, and they are very powerful and very amazing, and she's talking about dating. She's talking about everything. So let's share, what is your perception of the dating world right now? Like, if you could sum it up in one word, what would that be?
A mess.
Okay. And why?
Um, we have a lot of woundedness, a lot of abandonment, a lot of avoidant or anxious, and people not willing to do the work, not willing to heal their woundedness. And so when I say a mess, it's a mess for somebody like me or you stepping in who are very aware of who they are and what they bring to the table and are really okay with eating alone until their divine masculine shows up. And it goes into a space where we just keep leveling up our bar, which is great for us. And the alternative is watching people continue to bleed all over each other with their wounds because they're just not willing to do the work. It's really hard to watch the fallout of that.
Mm-hmm. You know, the one thing that I want to add to that I found about myself is even in the book that I wrote, it's like sometimes you have exchanges with people because you're healing each other, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's different than what you're saying about the people that are completely not willing to do the work. They're not even divorced yet. They're not even separated. And they dive into the dating world just for attention, just to see, you know, will anybody swipe on me, right? What will this look like? And it's the attention that they're craving, the external, right? But you know what you're saying, what I feel like we're doing is we've done that internal work. So we want someone else who's done that internal work to show up and be at that same vibration.
That's right. That's right. And yes, like we learn from our relationships. We learn if, you know, and one of the things that I've actually said on a couple of my TikToks is that if you cannot look back and reflect on every relationship as what is the lesson out of that relationship, you're just aimlessly dating. I think conscious dating needs to become a thing. If you haven't, and I've had this conversation with men and women, it's like, what did you learn from that relationship? And they're like, they kind of look at me. And I actually had this conversation with a man who has done personal development and has done some of this work. And I said, well, the story you're telling me about this last breakup looks exactly like the breakup 10 years ago. What have you not learned? Because they're bringing you that lesson over and over and over again. And I can say that for myself, being through marriages and relationships, there was always one common thread. And I think the biggest question that somebody could ask, if I could just drop this in here, is that you can ask yourself the question without blaming the other person. What is the reason why your relationship ended? It puts accountability on you and understand what your pattern is. And so when I heard that, I was like, I was taken a little bit back. And then I realized that I was continuously choosing potential. I could see their potential. I could, like, it was like I could see from the higher self, their higher self, who they could be, and then was annoyed when they weren't willing to step up to that, because not everybody's at that stage.
No, they're not. And I think it's about you knowing yourself well enough to have boundaries to say, you know what, this isn't a good fit for me, right? I'm not just going to take a portion of this just to fulfill maybe, you know, the anxiety or the codependence, right? Yeah, that's a good point.
Absolutely.
That's a really good point. Okay. Pete's on here. I just want to read this. He's an amazing guy. He said, some of us are doing that internal work, truly working on it. You are correct. I have taken away always from every relationship. Yeah, so good. I think thank you for sharing that, Pete, because he is doing his work. He's quite evolved, and I think that that's important to know that there is men out there that are doing it, just like there's women that are not doing the work, right? So
That's right. Yeah, I have a couple of male friends in my life that are very evolved, and they have finally found their divine partner, and I'm so happy for them when they do, because they feel like they're wandering aimlessly, and will I ever be chosen, or will I ever find somebody that is going to match me when I'm at this level of evolution and completely aware? And they do. It's really great to watch. It's such a cool thing to see.
Well, and I think it's just about patience, right? It's about patience, which I'm not very good at because I'm an Aries, right? What sign are you?
I'm a Libra, cusp Scorpio.
Oh, yes. Okay. I know, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, we're going to move into a different thing now. let's talk about, I want to talk about self-love because I feel like this is so key to what we're talking about. If you don't love yourself, how are you going to attract someone that is going to be in a vibrational match with you? So what are some things that you do to strengthen your self-love?
Keeping agreements with myself is a big thing. When I say that, if I have said that I'm going to, even on the daily, it starts as a daily practice and then it comes as a long-term practice. So on a daily practice, eating well, working out, and these sound like the same old things, but it's the truth. Making sure I'm getting enough sleep, that's self-love. Making sure that
Yeah, I can't hear you. What happened there? I can't hear you. It says your sound is off. All right, we're just fixing these technical difficulties which come up at moments in time. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Cindy. Yeah, we're fixing it. Yeah. She's like, I'm trying to unmute. Okay. Well, she's trying to unmute. We're just talking about how to, yeah. She's like, I can't do it. Yeah. It just came up and it said, yeah, like down at the bottom of your phone, there's that little microphone, which I'm sure you know, but it just went on. Okay. So what we're talking about here is self-love, and Terra gave some really good points about, honoring your boundaries with yourself. So yesterday I actually did a reading and it was about honoring boundaries. Like, do you have porous boundaries? Do you say no to people? Do you protect yourself to fulfill your goals, to get enough sleep, to allow yourself to eat healthy, to follow through with your exercise and your meditation, all of those healthy things, right? And it's important to honor those boundaries because it makes you more peaceful internally versus externally. Okay, so, okay, we're trying everything here to bring her back on audio-wise. Pete says, self-love is important and has to be on both sides. Without self-love, you are meeting another soul that isn't there yet. Yeah, you're right, Pete. That's exactly it. And then you just end up, being porous with your boundaries and you end up giving to the other person. And then in the end, sometimes you feel bitter and resentful and just empty because they're drawing your energy off of you all the time, which is hard, right? When we have to actually say, you can't unmute. Yeah. So how about I remove you and you come back on? Oh, okay. I'm going to just type here. Just one moment. Okay, here we go. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna remove her and bring her back if I can. Oh dear. Okay. All right, so here we are. We gotta love these technical difficulties, right? It's like, all right, let's do this. This would happen to me on the radio show sometimes on 1-2 Radio. So we would have a guest on there and then we would end up disconnecting. So I want to talk a little bit about self-love because self-love is my jam. I teach in the Goddess Healing Matrix system, which is all about bringing self-love to yourself. So Tara, just, request to be added here when you can, and I'll bring you back on. I love technology. This is why I need my assistant helping me. Okay, request to join again if you can, Tara. Can you re-invite? It says that I've already invited you. Yeah. Oh, here, I'm adding you. Okay, I'm just sending it now. So self-love is key because if you do not have self-love, eventually everything's going to break down. And there she is again. Are you there? Okay.
Hi. My cousin tried calling me through Facebook
It is a
Messenger.
hiccup.
So
I turn
that's the
my phone
hiccup.
off so that people can't get through because it does this every time. So, okay, so let's go back and talk about self-love. Would you say that you have
Hmm.
always been an advocate for yourself for self-love? Okay.
No. No, actually, so the seminar that I serve with, I attended that seminar 13 years ago, and it wasn't until then that I realized how lacking I was in self-love. Sometimes
Mhm.
it requires other people to bring that awareness to us. So I looked like I love myself. I acted externally like I love myself. I did all the things. But the contract out of the first part that I adopted, because we come out of that first part with a contract, is I'm a woman who loves herself. So that tells you where that was at. That
Wow.
was 13 years ago.
Good for you.
Yeah.
You know, it's usually through a crisis, right, in our lives that we begin to understand how important self-love is, right? Because if we don't take care of ourselves, we're not going to
Absolutely.
be there to take care of anybody else down the road. So it is so key. Okay, so let's dive into a little bit about my program. Tara was there, and there was 7 women. I had given out 10 scholarships at the Shine event, and I had the 10 applications in my hand. I was going to choose 4, actually, and I just heard Spirit say very clearly, you need to choose all 10 of them. And so I did, and Tara was one of those beautiful women that filled out the scholarship to attend the first level in my program, the Higher Priestess Practitioner. And we did that a couple of weeks ago. So, do you want to share a little bit with everybody what you experienced from that certification?
Oh, okay. So, as much of the Cliff Notes version as possible. So on Thursday, on day one, we were doing a process around clearing our chakras. And when we got down to the throat chakra, and I knew this has always been a sticking point because I've worked with energy healers for a number of years as part of my self-care and self-love. And, I could feel that tightness. And we moved to the heart chakra. I actually had a full-on visualization, like the left side of my heart was torn open, and like I could actually visualize what that looked like. And so the result was having a conversation and some homework around stitching that back up using the divine masculine thread, because it was the divine masculine, or the masculine, that the wounds initially came from. And I could pinpoint to the point where those wounds started to open. And so that was the homework. And then we did the sharing. I was going in there with the intention to really like focus in on the abandonment wounds, and because I knew where that was showing up in my last relationship, that I chose him out of woundedness, and I understood the ramifications of that. So that was my intention. And so we're doing the work, and then on Saturday wrote the exam. It was great, and I learned so much and got to share all of this energy and presence with these other women. And we all seemed to have that common thread, that there was abandonment, that there was a number of things. And on Saturday, this was what sealed the deal, is Velva placed the Isis crown on me. And the feeling that overcame me was so incredibly powerful. And I've attempted to explain this to a few people. And I think the best reaction was my mom. And so when the crown was placed on me, I could feel it over my whole body. But it was like there was an expansiveness and a healing that came over my heart. And ever since, it was like I actually articulated this to a friend of mine, who's a retired pastor, so completely different faith base. And I said, I haven't felt my heart this tender since I was 6 or 7. And he's like, wow. And so I've been just really protecting that and really honoring that inner child, and honoring the tenderness that I feel and the softness that I feel coming into that. And so that was the big piece of my transformation. And to extend on that, I actually work with a couple women that are my clients that are energy healers, and we get on Zoom and they're like, whoa, what happened to you? Like they can feel it right away. And one of them has been in my life since we were kids, and she's like, what have you let go of? What has shifted for you? So then I've had the opportunity to share the experience. And I would not have believed it unless I'd experienced it myself. I didn't realize how sensitive I was and how open I was until I did those 3 days with you. I just thought I was kind of like everybody else, and maybe just put myself into that fitting in and belonging. And I realized that I come out of that knowing that I'm so much more than I gave myself credit for. It's the best way to describe it.
And I know, I'm glad you put it into words as best you can, because I have to tell you, I've seen this experience so many times in the work that I do. It's very deep. It's right to the core. I always say people end up coming to me when they've tried everything else, right? Then they come and they're like, okay, I'm sick, or I have dis-ease. How can you help me? And it's like, I feel like we should be at the top of the program for people when they become imbalanced. It's like, seek someone who does really deep chakra energy healing work, right? Because it's those of us that will get right to the root. So the fact that your friends can feel you and they can feel the vibration is phenomenal, right? And you can see it, like you're glowing from the inside out, right? It's not just your skincare. You are glowing, right?
Thank you. Thank you. And it feels that way too. It feels the energy has just shifted. I'm sleeping better.
So let's talk a little bit about something you said, because I think people don't realize this. Okay. So the one thing that you do and we did in the course is when we have experiences, whether it's divorce or cancer or an illness, those experiences end up, weighing on you, literally, right? And when they weigh on you, eventually it just decreases the vibration of your energy body, your spiritual body, your emotional body, all of it. And releasing those things that maybe you've never told anybody. I mean, we had people in the circle that shared things that they'd never shared with anybody, which happens often, right? Where whether you've had an abortion or you've had an affair, or, you don't love your child, or there's really deep things that people keep within themselves, and you just don't think to go in there and talk about it because no one ever probes you, or it never comes up again, right? Unless maybe you have intense counseling sessions.
That's right.
And you saw that in the circle, right? So how important is it, do you feel, to release, and how do you release those heavy things that you've been carrying even since your childhood?
There's no simple answer to that. What I can say is that, like, I've been diving into formal personal development for 13 years. Releasing it isn't as easy as just, and I had people tell me this for years, just let it go, just let it go. No, you can't just let it go. You have to allow yourself. And so this is some of the work that I do. You have to be willing to feel the emotions. I refer to it in my practice as emotional constipation. Unless we can justify the feeling or attach it to a circumstance, we don't allow ourselves to have it. And so a lot of the work that I do is like, no, if you're feeling like you want to cry, then just cry. It could be an emotion from when you were 3 and you don't have any idea, because the emotion gets trapped in the body. And so when you allow yourself to feel, and feel within an emotional intelligence and a level of control, that doesn't mean you get to go crazy on somebody. It doesn't mean you get to be mean to anybody else. It means that you honor yourself and take the time to have the emotion. That if you have a day that you just need to flop in bed for the day and you have the availability to do it, then do it. Listening to your body is a really, really big piece of that, and honoring yourself. And I think with those release of those emotions without attaching it to a circumstance or a thing, that's part of the release. And sharing the story with somebody that you trust. I talk about it as the vault talk. Have the conversation with somebody that you trust, that it's not just in you anymore. It is with somebody else that you trust that will take it to the grave with you. And I actually provide that space for my clients as well. Okay, let's have the vault talk. Let's tell me whatever it is that you have never told anybody in your life that you hold shame about. And or guilt. Shame and guilt are cousins. And so it's not just a matter of just letting it go and releasing it. You have to allow yourself to feel it. You have to be able to somehow share that story, so it's not just trapped inside.
I love that you called it the vault talk, right? Because it's true. It's like, even sometimes you just need to feel safe, and sometimes it's an energetic space that allows you to feel safe, right? And there are things, I mean, I think that's so powerful that you said honor your body too. If you're tired, have a nap, right? Like, when I look at how the paradigm is that we are so programmed to provide the external, and in our culture specifically, we have forgotten about the internal, and the internal is the most important part, right? I always say walk directly into your pain, like walk right into it. Because when we try and placate it, or, you know, push it under the carpet, it's going to come back, whether it's through disease or any type of, you know, internal discord. It's going to show up eventually. And that's the part I think we need to understand, that the most important thing that anybody could be doing here on this planet is doing your inner work, going inside. Bring up what you just said. What are the most, what is like shame and guilt? I love how you called them cousins, right? So it's such a low vibration, right? And when you carry those low vibrations, it decreases the vibration inside your body, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that when we step into this work, we have to make sure that we have a couple people around us that can support us in that. It gets really, really lonely, because when you start to grow, there's going to be those crabs in the bucket that will try to keep you along with them. And I actually had this conversation with a girlfriend not that long ago. She says, I feel so alone. And I said, yes. And you have people around you like me, and I gave her a couple examples that are here to lean on. And it's not usually, I'm not going to say never, but it's not usually family. It's not usually your closest friends. It's usually somebody in the external. We get to choose our circle at that point. It's not a default circle. And staying in the default circle is sometimes where we hinder our own healing.
And, you know, I want to add to that, because I think it's really important what you just said, is you find your tribe, right? You find those people that are not going to judge you. You find those people that are growing, right? They always say that we become most like the 5 people around us, right? So you want to choose people that are doing their work, choose people that are not judging, have compassion, you know, have healthy boundaries. And I feel like your circle changes as you change. You're going to lose people along the way. There's going to be carnage. And people are always so worried about, oh, you know, I have discord with a family member, and that's okay. It does. When you grow, sometimes you have to move forward, and they'll either move forward with you, or they will be there waiting, you know, for their time, right?
Yeah, yep, absolutely. And I can say that I've experienced that on a exponential level. I have a father that I haven't had a relationship with in 15 years. And really the last 13 years. And it was a choice of, do I love myself more, or do I stay in this relationship? Because the relationship wasn't healthy. And how much do we want to, and, you know, unfortunately, we see this as an upward trend where there's no contact between kids and parents. But we're better educated. And do I miss my dad? Sometimes. Do I regret my choice? Absolutely not. Because it was just another crab in the bucket. There was no accountability, no acknowledgement. And that was the start of the abandonment wounds to begin with. And so when we take a look at this, and how can we do better moving forward, that we don't put that into our own children and wound our own children so that they have wounds to heal too. That's where the hard work is how do we shift that and change that and break those chains?
Well, and you can see how it happens, right? How our parents raised us, and then how we're raising our children. I mean, we're still making mistakes of some sort too, because I feel like that's how they learn, right? I feel like, you know, we are here to learn as humans, and sometimes we can't. But you're right, diminishing the chain is so important to become. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to pick a few more questions here. All right. Because it's fun. This is me jumping all over the place. Okay.
Yeah.
What does spirituality mean to you?
Ooh. Spirituality is an expansiveness. I was raised in the Catholic Church. I believe in God. I do not practice Catholic. I believe in Mother Nature and the universe. I believe in our angels. I believe in it's such, and I think everybody has an individuality on this, and that's what I love about it, is that it's an expansive. That's why I call it expansive, is because, you know, when I have one person in my life who's a retired pastor and his faith has certain beliefs, I'm like, those are some really beautiful beliefs, and we can pick and choose how we translate that for ourselves, in a beautiful way, not in a way that it becomes weaponized. I think that's a very conscious thought and expression that needs to be put out there. And my spirituality is about my heart and my intuition, and how I am spoken to from sources that I don't need to understand, that I just know that those messages come. And I think that it's something that we have to explore for ourselves. I think it's something that we have to step into on our own as we learn ourselves.
Your answer. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Right? Because I feel like, you know, we're breaking those old paradigms, right? And as we let go of those, it's an inside job. So it's different for every single person, right? To say this is how it is for everybody is not true, because how could it be? We all have different DNA. We all have a different lens that we look through, right? So I love it. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay, here we go. Okay, can you see Pete's question?
I saw his question and I'm like, are we addressing that live? God is part of the universe. The universe is part of God. And that's my belief system. And that's the cool thing about this, is I refer to this like an A to B. There, you can get to A to B 100 different ways, and there's no wrong way. It has to be significant and specific to the soul and to the heart. And that's an interesting perspective. I see God as guidance on demand. I see, and that's not how I see it. I think it was a choice not to see it in that way. Being raised in the Catholic Church and the things that I experienced within the Catholic Church, and within my Catholic Church, because I don't want to paint them all with the same brush. That's my belief, is that God is a really loving father, and a loving being is my belief in that. And so, which is part of Father Sky, Mother Earth, you know, when we look at all of the figures in our spirituality, I think it can be seen as something that is specific to the person. Yeah. I don't think that there's a wrong answer there.
I agree. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Pete. So my next question is, we're going to talk about relationships. We're going to pop back in this section, right? What quality is most important to you in a relationship?
Trust and honesty as a cohesive unit.
Okay.
Yeah. If there's no trust and there's no honesty, I think that there's no foundation.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay. All right, here we go. When did you last cry, and what was it about?
The last time I cried is when we had the Isis crown on my head, and it was tears of joy. Tears of joy that I could feel a wound that had been gaping for years that I wasn't even aware of. It felt like it closed up. And I've literally even seen my posture, like my shoulders inward, like I've really been protecting and harboring that heart, because it deserves it. It's been really exposed for a really long time. And I think that, and so that was the last time I cried. Like there was tears streaming down my face. I even have it on video. Thank you to one of the other women that took video of that. Like that was just such a gift to watch that and just feel that emotion. And crying is so healthy for us.
It is.
It's such a beautiful thing.
It is crying, right? Whether it's joy or grief or whatever it may be, we need more people to cry. That's the whole part of this, right? Let go, be vulnerable. And that leads into my next question. What is the importance of vulnerability in your life? How has that shifted for you over the years?
Vulnerability has been a big shift for me. Before I stepped into personal development, I was actually, it was such an oxymoron. I was a cold, hard brick wall. And I was an open book, but not really vulnerable. And alternatively, I was the doormat. So I was the people pleaser. So I was still in the space of feeling like I was being vulnerable and raw, but it was calculated on the people pleasing. And so now vulnerability comes from a space of genuine authenticity, that we can be real and raw, and it doesn't have to be brutal, that it can be gentle and loving. And vulnerability allows people to learn how to love me better. And it allows me to be open enough and give them space to be vulnerable as well.
Yes. I love that, because when you break open, it makes space for someone to come in, right? But sometimes that's what we have, is that wound. We have that shell or the helmet on, right? I always say it's like, I did a blog, it was called Crash Helmet for the Heart, right? Where people, they're afraid to get hurt. So they either don't try, they don't share. And I think it all goes back sometimes to your childhood too. Like, were you allowed to share as a child, right? Because I grew up in the age where children were to be seen but not heard, right? You too? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and my parents worked very hard. They both had 2 jobs. So at a fairly early age, I was running meals to the fields and taking care of the house and helping take care of my little brother. And, and so we didn't have the time, the space. My parents vulnerability wasn't a thing. Like, my dad is first generation Canadian from a Polish heritage. You don't talk about your feelings. There's no way, not happening. And, and so vulnerability wasn't something I was raised with. It's a space that we all hold for each other now. My mom and I specifically, we hold that space for each other now. But that's through doing the work and through learning and educating each other as best as we can.
Which is amazing, because you can see the growth, right, within yourself and then your family. And I always say that, like, even in the course, I'm like, because you're here and you're doing the work, it's affecting your children, your spouse, your family. Your deep internal work has a ripple effect. Just like when you cast a stone into a pond that's still, you can see the ripples. And it's exactly what happens when we begin to move and do the deep inner work. So,
Absolutely. Yep. And it's interesting because I had a conversation with my son probably 3 or 4 days after we were finished our workshop. And he said that he felt different energy. My kids are very sensitive, all 3 of them. And I haven't been able to connect with my daughter yet. And with my little one, I get a lot of more I love yous and mom, can I have a hug? And so they express it differently. And so it's been really, really cool having him home, because he wants to be in my presence more, which is really, really cool, because, at 8, they're too cool for everything. It's just, I could feel the shift. And even my mom, when I was telling her the story around the work that I did, she was in tears on the other end of the phone. And she was, just to feel that emotion through the phone, to have that conversation. Yeah, it extends and expands to our loved ones. And I think that's part of the importance of doing this work, because it's more than just about us.
It is. And that's just it. I mean, we're all here together. So when one shifts, everyone else, it's like a domino effect, right? Yeah. So
Absolutely.
very powerful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about dating again. We're going back over there. I like this question because I know I felt it myself.
Okay.
Do you get nervous on the first date?
Yes. Yes, very much so. And I think it's like a what do I not know, as well as an excitement about the possibilities.
That's a good way of explaining the energy, right? Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about what is one thing that you have on your bucket list?
A #1 bestseller, as I am 4 days from writing the finishing of the first copy or the first rendition of the book that I'm working on. That's a big bucket list thing that I never thought would ever come to fruition. Here I am 4 days from a memoir style book that is going to be published in the very near future. Thank you. Yeah. So that's probably the biggest bucket list thing right now. And I don't put my bucket list like far in the distance because things change so fast. And what I want now may not be what I want in a year.
Yeah. I love that. And it's going to be very successful.
Yeah.
I mean, the way you look at life is so inspirational and expansive and real, right? Like you're such a gift, Terra. So thank you. Truly, like you are.
Thank you. It starts with being surrounded with women like you and the women in that group. Every last one of them, I learned something significant from them. And that's where we talk about creating our own tribe.
Keep moving until you find what fits, right? I always say it's like, when I was going through my divorce to find my lawyer, I went and met them in person, shook their hand. I felt their energy. I didn't just look at the credentials and pick up the phone and talk to them. I actually was in their space. So I think that's important to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
The other thing, what is the most adventurous thing that you've ever done that you can share?
That I can share. Probably my solo hike last year. I went on my very first solo hike. I, checked in with, because I love hiking and I love being in the mountains. I moved closer to the mountains 2 years ago. It was the best thing I could have done for myself. And so it was the empowerment of being on the mountain by myself. There was people around, like I wasn't ignorant about it. Like I respect nature and I respect all that comes with nature. And part of the experience was meeting people on the mountain that I actually finished out the hike with. And my hike was only going to be 7 kilometers thereabouts, and it ended up being 15 and a half. And we did it in 4.5 hours. And it was so good. And the people that I met were unexpected gifts in my life that we still follow each other on social media and we still connect back and forth. And we're completely different generations. They're immigrants. And so being able to share each other's stories and that was probably the most adventurous thing that I've done in my adult life that will stick with me forever.
That's pretty profound, right? Because it's deep trust, right? There's such a deep trust in that moment of, I don't know, I'm going by myself. I think there's so much to be learned in doing things solo about yourself and to access that trust inside.
Absolutely. Actually, any of my single clients, I actually encourage them to take themselves on dates. Coming to your Shine event was a day date for me. It was something that was just for me, and look at the result. And I have taken myself on several dates. It's a part of getting to know ourselves and what we really, really love, and sitting in the uncomfortableness of waiting for what you want and what you desire in this life. That's part of it.
What was that post the other day? Getting uncomfortable, is what creates shifts, right? So many times we like to sit in comfort. We like to sit in that space of, well, it feels good here. I'm not going to move, right? But when you're forced to move, sometimes the universe is like, okay, you're moving, you're getting out of this marriage, or you're moving from this place to this, or you're changing careers. It makes you grow.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
It does. It forces you to level
So
up.
what do you have
Yeah.
coming up? Because we're getting close to our 5 minutes here. So what do you have coming up that you want to share with everyone?
Oh. What do I have coming up? In the immediate future, I think the closest thing coming up is the book. I start writing it, and it's interesting because I would just want to talk a little bit about that process. So it's a 96-day journaling memoir, a detox from a relationship. Because relationships and healing from relationships is exactly that. It's a detox. And so I've written it in a journal format and coming back around and writing it from the healed position, with the perspective of writing a workbook that is meant for single people, single women, usually more specifically, that's my demographic, stepping into their own self-worth. I run self-worth programs right now that I've written, and it's with the specificness of, just women starting to step into their self-worth journey. But this would be like driven towards single women specifically, because I've done a lot of coaching in that area, and it's been really cool to watch these women shift. So that's probably the biggest thing, is this book. Oh, and I'm going to be a grandma. That's a big deal in my world too. But that just happens as it's going to happen. So the biggest thing for my empowerment is this book.
Being a grandma, how exciting, right? I think that's such a gift. I'm not there yet,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I think that's such a gift. That's exciting. Congratulations. So
Thank you.
where can people find you, and what can they do with you in the last few minutes? Do you want to give them your website?
Okay. Sure. My website is www.terradawn.co, and it's TERRA. And it's so funny because Velva and I have the same middle name. And so that's my website, and I'm on Instagram and on Facebook and on TikTok. Instagram and TikTok is Transforming with Terra Dawn. And the work that I do is very one-on-one. And I work with women working to overcome overwhelm, hormonal nutrition balancing, and just really the whole gamut around stepping into that self-worth. It's really hard to describe in one small context, but I'm teaching women on a path of steps that worked for me, and then we get to individualize as they go on. So I have a 3-month process and a 6-month process. 3 months is more nutrition based, but still with a lot of heart work. The 6 months is the all intensive. And yeah, and so I guess what I do have coming up is 6-week transformation challenge that comes up in middle of April. And it's just 6 weeks of working on nutrition education. So I educate. I don't just tell you what to eat. I teach you why. And I make it work, and we make it work on your lifestyle. We talk about routines. We talk about the habits. So I'm pretty much a habit nerd, and that's where a lot of my work goes from.
Perfect. So for anybody out there, hi, Roberta. I see she's on here. She says, congratulations.
Thank you.
There's so much value, I think, in your answers and what you've shared, Raleigh. And I want to thank you for doing the work that you're doing, for yourself, for your family, and guiding people, right? Because I know it takes a lot of strength. I do it myself, and you're doing an amazing job at it. So I just can't say, oh, good, I highly recommend Terra. Yeah, I've seen some really positive comments for you, and you're just shining so bright, and you're helping so many. So thank you for being here with me today on Wisdom Weaver. I really appreciate you, and I look forward to connecting with you more. And thank you to everybody who has been listening and supporting during our time together.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor.
It was my pleasure.
Truly.
It's always a pleasure to connect with you. I felt like, you just have such a strong message. So thank you. All right.
Thank you for everything you do. This woman, I can't say enough good about her. It's amazing. People come into our lives when we're
I totally
meant to be.
agree. They totally do. It's divine timing. And when you meet and you connect, there's people that are going to be in your life forever. And I feel like that about you. So thank you. You're welcome. All right, everyone, have an amazing week. And we will be back next week with Angela Grunewald. Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.